The images are something you can't unsee. On September 9, 2025, the heart of Nepal's democracy was engulfed in flames. Yes, actual flames. Thick black smoke and flames billowed from the federal parliament building in Kathmandu. A horrifying spectacle against the Himalayan peaks. This wasn't an accident, this was pure, unadulterated rage. The building meant to represent the people was being consumed by the people. A visceral scream from a nation pushed past breaking point. A visual testament to a government that had catastrophically lost the plot. Down below, the streets were not just full, they were a heaving, surging river of humanity. Tens of thousands defied a government curfew, turning the capital into open rebellion. They weren't just marching, they were claiming the city as their own. The air, thick with smoke, crackled with defiance. Chants for freedom echoed off ancient temples and modern storefronts. This was not polite, this was chaos. This was a revolution televised, live-streamed, happening right now, the world watching in stunned silence. This fiery climax was the end of a chapter. It forced the hand of a leader who had stopped listening. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, after years of simmering discontent, was cornered. Faced with the evidence of failure, a burning parliament, an occupied capital, and a populace that refused to back down, he did the only thing he could. He quit. In a letter to the president, he cited the adverse situation, the understatement of a country on fire. News of his resignation spread like the fire, and the mood morphed. Fury didn't evaporate, it transformed into wild, unrestrained joy. Exuberant young people, the same who faced riot police hours earlier, flooded into the smoldering parliament complex. They had done the impossible. So, how did it come to this? How does a country go from relative peace to a burning parliament in the blink of an eye? Well, it starts with a government making a spectacularly dumb decision. The initial spark, the single match that lit this nationwide inferno, was a ban on social media. Facebook. Ex-YouTube. They might as well have tried to ban oxygen. For Nepal's youth, this wasn't just an inconvenience. It was an attack on their voice, their community, their primary window to the world. But let's be clear. This was never just about TikTok dances, cat videos. The social media ban was simply the final insult after years of systemic rot. The real fuel for this fire was corruption. A deep, pervasive culture of corruption that saw the ruling elite treat the national treasury like their personal ATM. For years, ordinary Nepalis struggled with a sluggish economy, crumbling infrastructure, a bleak lack of opportunity. All the while, they watched politicians and their families amass staggering wealth. The disconnect between the lives of the rulers and the ruled had become a chasm. Social media became the place evidence was shared. The youth of Nepal, dubbed Gen Z protesters, saw it all. Videos went viral showing the children of the political elite, the so-called Nepo kids, flaunting extravagant lifestyles. Viral post, son of a politician posing with a fleet of luxury sports cars. They posed with luxury cars that cost more than a village's annual income, wore designer clothes on lavish European holidays, behaved as if the country's struggles were happening on another planet. Every boastful post was another log on the fire, a digital slap in the face to a generation being told to tighten its belt. The anger was palpable and it was personal. This wasn't an abstract debate about economic policy, it was about fairness. Seeing a politically connected few living in a different reality, protected from consequences, the social media ban was seen as a desperate attempt by the corrupt to silence witnesses to their crimes. It was a fatal miscalculation, and it turned simmering resentment into a full-blown inferno. When the call to protest went out, it wasn't the usual political operatives who answered, it was the kids. Journalists on the ground described seeing a sea of protesters, a significant portion of whom were still in their school uniforms. Think about that for a moment. Teenagers who should have been worrying about exams and homework felt they had no choice but to march on their nation's parliament. They poured out of their schools, their blue and white uniforms becoming the unlikely symbol of this new revolution. Their presence sent a powerful message. The system was so broken that even the children could see it, and they were utterly fed up. The government's response was as brutal as it was predictable. Faced with a wave of young, determined citizens, the police did not hold back. They deployed water cannons, powerful jets of water slammed into crowds of teenagers. They fired volley after volley of tear gas, choking the streets and the lungs of protesters. Then, as people refused to yield, police escalated. They fired live ammunition. They opened fire on their own people. The very individuals sworn to protect them were now shooting at them for demanding a better future. The state was waging war on its own children. The cost was devastatingly high. In the chaos of the crackdown, lives were extinguished. Initial reports spoke of over a dozen dead, a number that climbed to at least 22 as the days went on. Hospitals were overwhelmed with the injured, with estimates suggesting over 300 wounded. These weren't just statistics, they were students, young workers, ordinary citizens who had paid the ultimate price for speaking out. Every death, every injury, only served to harden the protesters' resolve. The kids were not all right, and now, neither was the government. As the protests surged and the body count rose, the government's grip on power began to slip, then completely fell apart. The security forces were overwhelmed. Despite using tear gas, water cannons, and live rounds, they simply could not contain the sheer number of people on the streets. Protesters weren't just in one place, they were everywhere. They blocked major roads, bringing the capital to a standstill. They stormed government facilities and even set fire to the homes of several top political leaders, making it terrifyingly clear that no one in the ruling class was safe from the people's wrath. The situation spiraled into such chaos that the army had to be deployed. But their role wasn't to crush the rebellion, it was to save the powerful from it. Army helicopters were seen airlifting ministers and their families from their besieged residences, ferrying them to safe locations. It was a stunning and symbolic admission of defeat. The government couldn't even guarantee the safety of its own officials on the ground. They were, quite literally, running for the hills, while the country they had mismanaged burned below them. The state had lost control of its own capital. For Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli, this was the end of the line. From his vantage point, he would have seen a city in open revolt, a parliament in flames, and a security apparatus that had failed. He must have realized that there was no path forward, and so he resigned. It wasn't a noble sacrifice for the good of the nation, but a pragmatic retreat in the face of overwhelming odds. Now, the smoke is beginning to clear over Kathmandu, leaving behind the charred skeleton of a parliament and a country holding its breath. The immediate goal of the protesters has been achieved. The Prime Minister is gone. The hated social media ban has been lifted. For a moment, there is a sense of euphoric victory, the thrill of having torn down a corrupt and unresponsive system. But as the adrenaline fades, it is replaced by a profound and unsettling question that hangs heavy in the Himalayan air. What comes next? Tearing something down is one thing, building something better in its place is another challenge entirely. Is this a new dawn for Nepal, a genuine turning point towards a more accountable and just society? It could be. This uprising, born from the digital outrage of Gen Z, has shown that the people of Nepal will no longer silently tolerate the excesses of their ruling class. It has set a powerful new precedent, a warning to any future leader that the youth are watching, they are connected, and they will not hesitate to act. This could be the start of a new political era, one where the fear of the people's power finally forces a culture of transparency and service. It is a fragile but very real glimmer of hope. However, there is a darker possibility. Power vacuums are dangerous, and they are rarely filled by the most noble of actors. The celebrations could easily give way to political infighting, instability, and even more chaos. Without a clear leader or a unified plan, the movement could splinter, allowing for the rise of another strongman or the return of the same old political elites in a different guise.